Right, hello and welcome to this 2024 United States presidential election prediction. I'm Joey and I'm an unbiased political commentator. So this is by far the most likely matchup, and it's all but confirmed now that it's going to be between Joe Biden, the incumbent president of the United States, and Donald Trump, the 45th president of the United States, who is looking to become the 47th president of the United States. Controversies surrounding Joe Biden at the moment include his handling of the Gaza conflict. And while Donald Trump has been convicted of 34 felonies and has also attracted some controversy with his past rhetoric, both have controversies surrounding their age. Now, without further delay, I'll get around to categorising these states. I'll start with the safe states for Joe Biden. These are the states that I think Joe Biden is going to win by upwards of 15%, and that includes Washington, Oregon, California, well, pretty much all the West Coast, to be honest with you. Illinois, Hawaii, Nebraska's their 2nd Congressional District, New York, and the New England states, plus the 1st District of Maine. I don't think there's too much controversy around much of these, as well as New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland. I mean, in a landslide, probably these would go likely, but I don't think there's too much danger of that happening in 2024. So I think that's pretty much all of our plus DC. But Trump's got some safe states of his own. These, again, states that I think he's going to win by upwards of 15%. And that includes Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, both the Dakotas, most of Nebraska's districts, as well as Nebraska at large. He's also going to win Missouri, Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, clean sweep in much of the deep south, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and I think that's about it for Trump's safe states, as well as probably Alaska. Okay, now we move on to that likely column. That's states that I think that Biden will win, but above 5%, but under 15% in terms of percentage. I think Colorado would also most likely be safe for Joe Biden as well. So Biden's likely states are New Mexico, Maine overall, New Hampshire, and Virginia. Now, briefly on some of these. New Mexico, Trump will probably perform the best out of these lot in all of these. He'll probably lose this by the least, but nonetheless I think it's going to go to Biden by quite a decisive margin. Obviously it's a future swing state, and it is trending to the right because of the general Hispanics abandoning the Democrats. But I think it's going to narrow up a bit for Trump, but I don't think it's going to narrow up enough for it to become competitive this time around. Now, in the case of Virginia, some polls have Biden and Trump potentially at a tie in this state, but I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, there is superficial evidence of the Republicans doing well there, such as Glenn Youngkin winning the governorship in 2021. But Virginia tends to vote against whichever party is in the White House, and at that time it was the Democrats. So that's why that happened. The only time it bucked that trend was during the Obama era. It's very suburban, and which just isn't good, like hunting ground for Republicans like Donald Trump, who are populists and they don't tend to perform very well in the suburban areas. Now, in the case of the New England states of New Hampshire and Maine, I think they might narrow up a little bit, but these areas, although in theory they should be Republican, they're actually very, because they're very rural and very, very white, but it's college-educated white, and so that tends, especially in New England, to lean towards the Democratic Party. So with those states, we've got Joe Biden currently on 216 and Donald Trump on 99. But Trump has some likely states of his own. I think it's pretty obvious that will include Texas, Kansas, Indiana, Ohio, Maine's 2nd Congressional District, as well as Iowa, Florida, South Carolina. So in the case of Florida, right, this is very red trending. Like, historically it's been seen as a swing state, but that the evidence just doesn't support that now. It's firmly in the red column. Cuban Americans make up a big electoral bloc, particularly in the Miami-Dade area of the state. So that's and they're very, very Republican. Been a big rightward swing here. Like Ron DeSantis won the governorship by 60% of the vote, over 20 points ahead of Charlie Crist, and Marco Rubio won 58% of the vote for the Senate against Val Demings in the November 2022 elections. So yeah, very Republican trending state is Florida, and so I don't expect anything different to really come of that in 2024. Texas, obviously this isn't as reliably red as it once was. Mitt Romney was the last person to win it safe for a Republican in 2012 against Obama. Biden got it within 6% in 2020, so I think it's going to be safe. It's going to be lightly bordering on lean. I think Hispanic trends in Trump's favour, particularly in the Rio Grande Valley, will offset his predictable losses in Fort Worth, Dallas and San Antonio in the suburbs. Again, Trump's not really, he's good for some Republican voters, he's not good for Republican voters in the suburbs. So yeah, I think it's going to stay about the same as its 2020 self. In 2024 is Texas. Ohio, like polls did show this to be competitive in 2020, but they actually, when the result happened, it proved to be nowhere near the case. And you know that this is most definitely like red trending. It's quite rural, quite working class, which is good, sort of a hunting ground for a populist Republican like Trump. So Democrats haven't really won it since, well, they didn't really win it before the Obama era, they haven't won it since the Obama era, so I'd expect this to stay pretty firmly Republican. I reckon Trump will win it by about 10%. Similar story in Iowa, and so that's Donald Trump slightly ahead of Joe Biden now on 219 votes to Biden's 216. So without further delay, we'll get to categorising the lean states for these guys, and I think there's only one lean state for the Democrats, or one that I think has a good chance of going lean for the Democrats, and that's Minnesota. Minnesota, Biden won this quite heavily in 2020. Won it with around 7% of the vote. Although it was different in 2016 when the Democrats only won it by 2% of the vote. I think it's going to trend right a bit because the Rust Belt in general is trending that way, and I think it's going to be around 4% for Biden, I think, in 2024. I mean, it's quite white working class, although the white working class are more party loyal in Minnesota than they are in places like Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. But I don't think it's going to make a major difference to the result, really. So I think it will narrow a bit and might get a little bit more favourable for the Republicans, but I don't think it's going to make a massive difference. So now we're going to go into the lean Republican states, and you know what, I'm going to categorise these in order of how favourable I think they are for the Republicans. So I will, from most reliable to slightly less reliable for the Republicans going lean, I think it's North Carolina, Nevada and Georgia. So in the case of North Carolina, this is still one of the more competitive southern states. It's kind of like the Minnesota for the Republicans, where they keep thinking it's going to flip, but it never quite does. It's like it is to the Democrats what Minnesota is to the Republicans, and they haven't won it since 1972. In fact, it's the only state that hasn't gone red since then. All the others have voted for a Republican at some point in the since then. In the case of North Carolina, it is one of the more competitive southern states, but if Biden won it, this would present a mass problem for Donald Trump, because that would mean these are in danger of going blue as well, and that would severely restrict his path back to the White House. But obviously, I still think the GOP is favoured here by quite a lot. Honestly, Biden hasn't got much room to grow here. Like, he's maxed out his support in the big cities like Greensboro, Raleigh, Charlotte, and turnout is traditionally low there anyway. It only increased in 2020 due to the increase in mail-in votes due to the coronavirus pandemic. So yeah, I definitely think Trump is quite strongly favoured here. He wins this by about 3%, I think, against Joe Biden. And so, in the case of Nevada, this hasn't been red in over 20 years, since George W. Bush won it against John Kerry in 2004. He won it by about 3%. Obama won it quite decisively, both in 2020, 2008 and 2012. But Nevada was the only state without a noticeable shift in either direction from 2016 to 2020, despite a general nationwide shift against the Republicans in favour of the Democrats. So, and look, the demographics of Nevada don't hold much hope for the Democrats. Unlike most states where there are legitimate left trends in the suburbs, there's no evidence for this in the south of the state, where Las Vegas is, or in Reno, towards the northwest of the state. So, in that case, I think Hispanics as well. It's got quite a big Hispanic population, and I think they are very much trending away from the Democrats at the moment. So, I think it's more. Well, they are actually trending against the Democrats and 2 Republicans more so than the US is on average. US Hispanics are on average. So I think the Republicans are definitely favoured here. I think Trump's going to win this by about 2.5% of the vote. And there's Georgia. Georgia is the last of the sort of more decisively Republican-leaning swing states in this case. I think this is of the lean states, I think this is the least likely to go to Trump, but nonetheless, I think Trump is still somewhat favoured here over Joe Biden. Georgia's competitive for sure, and it shocked quite a lot of people. Some say it even shocked the world in 2020 when it went for the Democrats, went for Joe Biden. The Democrats won the runoff Senate elections there, and so, but there is still evidence that the Republicans have a path to victory here. Brian Kemp won the governorship by around 10% of the vote, and I'd say Trump has about 55% chance of winning Georgia at the moment. Obviously, it is trending left, and especially in the Atlanta and the Savannah suburbs. But I think in the case of Georgia, it has a historically very, very large African American population. Now, obviously, make no mistake, this is a very, very Democratic voting bloc. I think they won 90% of the Democrats won 90% of the African American vote in Georgia in 2020. But the African Americans are turning against the Democrats, especially Biden. So, since Trump can't afford to lose Georgia for a second time in a row, I think he'll run it up with the African American voters here, and he will make an attempt to max out his support among the rural voters as well. I think he's going to campaign quite hard in Georgia, and I think it will pay off for him ultimately. So I think Trump's going to be winning this by about 1.5% of the vote in 2024. So this returns to the Republicans, possibly for the last time in 2024. Now we're going on to the tilt states. These are states that I think either candidate will win by 1% or under. And so I'll go with the first one, and that's Arizona. This is going marginally to Joe Biden. The reason why, I could be wrong here, because, obviously it did surprise a few people in 2020 when it went to a Democrat for the first time since 1996, when Bill Clinton managed to carry it against Al Gore. But I think ultimately what happened in 2022 as well was not very promising for the GOP in Arizona. It showed that they were viewed less favourably there than they were in other states like Nevada and Georgia, and so I think they're definitely at a disadvantage there. It was almost a nationwide humiliation, particularly for Kari Lake in Arizona, for the Arizona Republicans. I mean, Trump certainly could win it. It wouldn't be too surprising. But with Phoenix having and Maricopa having the suburbs trending so much in favour of the Democrats, I just don't. I think Joe Biden, he's probably favoured to win it by about. He'll win it by about 1%, I think. And now, look, this comes down to the Rust Belt at the end of the day. I think this is where Trump is actually marginally favoured, because at the moment Trump needs only one of Michigan or Pennsylvania to win, but Biden would need both of them. So what I think is going to happen is, at the moment, I would say Trump's favoured to win all three of the main Rust Belt states. Now, this is a controversial take. This is a kind of a weird map showing all three of the main Rust Belt states here, like being redder than Arizona. But I think in the case of Wisconsin, you know, there are some polls showing Joe Biden winning this at the moment, and obviously that wouldn't surprise me. But I think Trump is marginally favoured by the demographics of the state. It's not, in terms of competitive states, it's not great for Democrats, because it's Wisconsin at the moment. It's very white working class and very rural, and it's actually getting more white working class and rural. Its suburbs are trending left, but they're actually decreasing in size and getting less suburban. You know, and that's like Milwaukee and Madison are getting less suburban. So that's what I think favours the Republicans here. Plus, the inner cities of them have historically very bad turnout. So I don't expect that to work in the Democrats' favour in this case, to be honest with you. And in the case of Pennsylvania, I think that this is going to go this will probably be the closest state of all. I think Trump's going to win this by about 0.3%. Obviously, this was the state that decided the election in 2020 when Biden unseated an incumbent Trump, and you know, I think Trump was going to win this due to it being quite white working class and Biden support failing in areas like Philly and even in his home city of Scranton. So yeah, very marginal victory for Trump in Pennsylvania, and obviously this has got him past 270, and he's now this prediction has Trump winning the election and becoming the 47th president of the United States. And I think he also wins Michigan in this case. Now, this is a controversial take. Obviously, I would say this is one of Biden's, well, in 2020 this was definitely one of Biden's better swing states, because he won it by 2.5%. But whilst obviously we can point to Biden's support dropping among Arab Americans, like this is, you know, and obviously Michigan's the only state where the Arab Americans can actually make a difference to the overall result. They did trend red from 2016 to 2020, and I do expect them to trend a little bit more red. And even though they only make up around 3% of the overall vote in this state, and so that's not going to make that much of a difference. That's not what's going to tilt it in Trump's favour. But ultimately, it is going to help him, because that assisted with the turnout in Detroit, which is historically very low. I don't think there's going to be. I think the turnout from Detroit is going to be significantly lower in 2024 than it was in 2020, and I just don't think Biden's going to quite get the numbers in the Detroit metro area to bring him over the line in this state, and which is why I think we'll very marginally go to Donald Trump. And so, yeah, that's Donald Trump on 301 electoral votes, Joe Biden on 237. Yes, that's Donald Trump's not going to win the popular vote, but I think in this case he is going to win the electoral college vote, and that is my prediction for the 2024 United States presidential election as it stands on the 23rd of June 2024. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.